Welcome back to the channel. Today I'm going to make the left gauntlet from Din Djarin in The Mandalorian. And if you'd like to take a crack at making one of your own, there's a link below to the patterns for this build. Okay, first you're going to need to cut out your left top and bottom. This is ultimately going to get attached on the side here with some polypro strapping to kind of make it like a hinge. Ultimately, I'll put Velcro on the other side when I'm finished with the build, but in order for this to fit correctly, I'm going to heat it with a heat gun and curve it. I cut both these out of 6mm EVA foam, and this is not form-fitting on me. This is actually quite loose. I did this because I need to have space for the undergarments. Okay, I used some 1-inch polypro strapping, which is just a synthetic strap to attach the two sides together. I used 3 pieces, and I glued them in with super glue. However, you want to keep in mind that if you choose to use super glue and not contact cement, try to not get any super glue where your actual hinge is, otherwise it won't move, because the super glue will seep into the polypro strapping and cause it to harden up. And next I'm going to take some tape and put on the inside of this so that this stays together and doesn't flop around as I'm building the rest of it. So for some reason the audio is missing here. I'm not sure why, but basically all I explain is the yellow pattern piece is 2mm and the black one is 6mm, and you glue them one on top of the other, and that this space here in the rear, the slot that is cut out, is for my battery pack. And if you're not going to use a battery pack, then you could probably just fill this in and skip a lot of the steps on this. Next, I glued this on top directly in the center, this here being the front where my hand will come out. And I did that by using a tape measure to measure on top here the length of it, and then marked in the center on the front and the back, and that's how I lined my piece up. The next pieces you're going to need to cut out are also 6mm EVA foam, and that is the cone and the cone brace. This one you're going to heat and curve, and as marked on the patterns, you're going to need inward cuts on all 3 sides of this, and you're going to heat it and curl it with those inward cuts all facing on the inside. After that, you'll apply contact cement and then join these two together so that this piece is sticking straight out as it wraps around it. Alright, I glued on the cone and its support piece here. And then I put 9 holes in it. I just do 3 along the center and then put mine in on the sides. And that's where the lights are going to go. And I did that by heating up the tip of a screwdriver and basically slowly inserting it into it. And then moving it past the point, because I just got the very tip of the screwdriver hot. Moved it down to where the screwdriver was cool and let it sit there for a minute or so until the screwdriver cooled off, and then I just removed it. And that's where I'm going to shove all my lights into and glue my battery pack into here with super glue. But the thing about the battery pack is, since it's mold injected plastic, it doesn't glue very well, so I'm going to sand and rough up the edges and the bottom of it so it has something to actually glue to this. Okay, I glued in the battery pack and then shoved the lights into the holes using a pair of needle nose pliers, and then bundled up the cords and secured the other cord in place so it's not just sticking out wherever, and lights up and all that. Next, you're going to take your battery cover piece, heat it so that it's curved, the same as this with the heat gun, and then take the decap, which glues on the end here, and it does hang over a little bit, and this is going to be glued with a similar hinge system to what I did on the side, where I just take a piece of nylon and that'll move like that, and this will ultimately end up velcroing into here, so if I need to, I can just remove it to access the battery and all that stuff and the switch or whatever. I used a piece of Polypro strap and Velcro so I can close it. It opens on a hinge. Now, this did, unfortunately, whenever I glued the strap in, I had to have it open. And this did create a gap. And I can't technically fill that gap since this here needs to touch whenever I open it in order to have enough space to get my little screwdriver in there to loosen this up to change the batteries. So I did just cut a couple of pieces of filler on the side, and I had to cut a little bumper piece for this down here as well out of 6mm. Next, I'm going to put on my outside pieces. They just look like rectangles, but you cut the top of them at a bevel, an outward bevel, so that it'll line up and glue underneath here. But I'm also going to put contact cement here too, so it has some curve, but it will ultimately come down and help cover up that joint there where it opens and closes on that little Polypro hinge. Okay, I put on my outside pieces and glued them in with contact cement. I didn't really put any contact cement, obviously, in this area on either one, and it left a gap. And in the front, I'm covering the gap with the front cover piece, and that's 2mm foam. And I think with those on there, it gives it a much more, Mandalorian gauntlet look. And like I say, it helps cover the hinge and the area over here that's going to have Velcro on it. Next, it's time to start putting on some of the accent pieces. Okay, the accent pieces are all 2mm. Even though it's a different color, it's still 2mm EVA foam. I just did a different color so it would stand out on camera. Number 1, which lines up about 3mm from the end here. And then number 2, behind that, spaced evenly between the number 1 and the end. Then the number 3 starts at the seam and runs along the bottom with the number 4 on top of it. And there's 2 of those, 2 number 3s and 2 number 4s on each side, but just one number 1 and one number 2. Okay, the next little detail pieces I did were these buttons, 12, 3 rows of 4. And then 6 smaller ones on the sides. I didn't cut these. I can't cut anything that round, not without like a laser cutter or a round hole punch type tool, which you can use. But I have these Playside Creations. They're just 2mm foam that's cut into all these shapes. I just took the circles. However, you may notice this is not the same size to either of these. I took 12 and put them in the oven at 350 on a pie pan until they shrunk, and then pulled the pie pan out when it got to the size I liked and let them cool to room temperature. And then put 6 more in and shrunk them even smaller. It's not the safest thing to do, but it worked. Like I say, another option is just to make a punch. Whether you use like a rivet or a piece of PVC pipe that you sharpen down, or a piece of brass pipe, or anything you may have, or be able to find like that, you can always make punches to just cut your own, or have the money or the tools to either buy or build a laser cutter, I guess. Okay, back to the numbered battery cover pieces. The number 5 is 5mm, and you need 2 of those. You glue them one on top of the other, and then glue them lining up with this bottom corner of your number 3 that is on the hinge side. The number 6 is 6mm and gets glued on top of the 5. And the number 7 is also 6mm and gets glued to the combined 2 5s and 1 6 piece. And I took my scissors and cut this at an angle just because that's how it looks in the drawing. I don't really know. Oh well, it is what it is. Okay, for the 8, 9, and 10 pieces, there's 2 number 8s, and they're 5mm, and glue them on top of each other, and then stuck them together into the center on the rear of this. The number 9 piece is 2mm, just one piece, and goes from the back. I'll leave a little space at the front. And the number 10 is 6mm, and it goes from the center of the number 8 out. And kind of like this one, I angled it a bit with my scissors on this tip here. Next, on the side with your strap, you're going to need 8 of these support pieces. They are 6mm each. And how you space them out is, you take your strap side support cover piece, number 2, start here at the back, and that'll show you how widely to place them, because this is meant to go like that. After you have your first 2 in place, just space the next 4 of these 3 to 4mm apart, well, 5, and then the final 2 are measured to be as wide as your number 1 piece, so it can cover it. There it is with the 1 and the 2 covering. Alright, next is going to be the outside accent pieces, and the number 1, there's going to be 2 of them, and there's going to be a number 1 on each side, both 2mm. The number 2 goes on the side with your Velcro, and I cut a line in here and heated it with an X-Acto knife, and I cut some lines in here to kind of make it look like a vent, and then glued my 2 in. And then over here to the side with your Polypro hinge, I have a number 1, the number 3 piece, and the number 4. Okay, the 2 bottom accent pieces are 6mm, and the strip goes in the front. I have it so it kind of lines up with the edge of the 1 on the top. And then the second one starts from the back and goes forward, but keep in mind, like any slight variances in the shape, you may have to custom trim this. I had to space it enough, so I basically started my gluing where it's open, so I know that it can open fully, and that's why I started it where I started it, and I ended it where it would be able to close. Now I'm going to use my Dremel and sand up some rough spots and stuff on this. Alright, I sealed this with some gloss Mod Podge and a brush, a small brush for most of it, since I had to get in between everything. And then after that I just painted it a gloss black. I am going to have to mask off these little lights, unfortunately. And then I'm going to gradually spray on Cratex Wicked Colors Wicked Silver over this, until it gets a nice metallic color that I look. I try not to put too much or too little. Okay, I have yet to put the Velcro in it, but... or the straps. I'm going to have to put straps and Velcro to actually hold this together on the inside. And I'm not sure how I'm going to pad this out. There's a lot of room where my hand is, but I will also be wearing a glove, amongst other things, so I won't pad this until I get further along with the cosplay. But yeah, that's pretty much it for this. Okay, that's going to pretty much wrap it up for this video. A couple things I'd like to state. Like, this was pretty tricky to build, and I definitely, you know, showed less, explained more on this. I feel like if this is your first time doing a cosplay build, maybe don't try this one. Just throwing it out there. But as always, thank you all for watching. Hopefully you enjoyed this video. I'm pretty happy with how the cosplay is coming along so far. Hopefully things will work out that I will be able to finish it, aside from just building the armor. And if you enjoyed this video, please leave a like and subscribe, as it does help out the channel tremendously. And as always, thank you for watching. Have a great day.